Hello everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. We're big, we're bad, we're back, we're wearing a black shirt, and it is Fact Friday. So it's another lovely Fact Friday, frequently asked questions Friday. This one's going to be fun. I had a quick look at the questions before we started, hadn't formulated any answers yet, but they will come. And what I love about these particular questions is they're pretty random this week. The theme is random. In fact, it's been random for the last couple of weeks. The videos we've been doing on Monday, talking about how to create random reverb or delay ideas, things that make our music sound less than perfect, actually make it sound better. So let's get stuck into question number 1. Regarding choosing the buses, is it something that you do specific to your console, or were you going down the line to choose the next available one? So on the console, typically, not always, but typically, I would start with the drums from left to right, going kick, snare, then usually hats and toms and overheads and room mics. They can get a little changed around. Sometimes it's kick, snare, rack tom, floor tom, then hat and overheads as one, and rooms as a stereo pair, all kinds of stuff like that. Then it's usually, of course, a bass, and then guitars and keyboards, and then vocal. That's pretty typical for me. I have programming and samples and stuff like that playing down the other end of the console. So logically, with the drums first, that would be on, you guessed it, bus number 1, subgroup fader 1. Then the bass is, you guessed it, number 2. Electric rhythm parts, number 3. Then maybe electric lead parts, number 4. You're getting this. Then keys. And then acoustic guitars, sometimes acoustic guitars, then keys, but roughly like that. And then, of course, background vocals, finishing lastly on group number 8. You guessed it, group number 8 is going to be the lead vocal. So it's really how I visualize. Why do I make the lead vocal last on this bucket? Well, that's because it ends up in the middle. I'm going to turn around quickly here. Totally mess up Eric's shot.
But here's my lead vocal. He's going to tilt the camera down.
The lead vocal is coming out of, on this console, on channel 24. So what does that mean? That means I am sitting here, listening to the vocal, EQing it, riding the fader. Yes, you guessed it. I'm sitting in the optimal seating position in the middle between the speakers. So that's why I do it like that. That's why it's just because if I'm going to spend a good 50% of the time mixing the vocal so it sounds great, which is the most compelling thing that most of us hear. It's almost like vocals, kick and snare, like vocal percussion, vocal drums are what drive most songs, regardless of genre. Typically it's that. So I'm going to want that vocal to be in the middle because that's where I'm sitting so much of the time. So I want to have it there. If I want to bring a line up, it's just there. If I want to slightly boost the high end, it's just there. Everything is right there in front of me. There's no way I'd do vocal details and have it on channel 40 at the other end of the console. That wouldn't make any sense. So as far as busing is concerned, it literally follows that 1 through 8 on the groups on the console, based on drums, bass, rhythm guitars, electric lead guitars, acoustics, keys, backgrounds, and then vocals. Just laid out nicely like that. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm a singer, I use the term loosely, songwriter, and the only thing I record using a microphone is my vocals. All guitars are a direct in, and then I use amp sims for the electric. Drums are addictive drums. Have you ever done a mix in a box for this kind of production? Yes, all the time. In fact, just the other day, we did a song in the Academy, which is almost entirely like that. Remember, even when I am recording a guitar, electric guitar, or a bass, I'm printing a DI as well as an amp tone. And I've done many, many things where it's just like kick, snare, kick, kick, snare. In fact, last Monday's video, just gone, the one that had the delay stuff was just a kick and a snare. And I had to make it more interesting. So I do this stuff all the time. To be honest, when I'm writing and recording, quite often it's the same process. So somebody would be sitting opposite me with an acoustic guitar, working on an idea. They go in there, they put the idea down. Then we program a beat. Then I play another guitar, put a keyboard on. It's just, that's how it happens. And sometimes it's entirely in the box, and sometimes it's one amp. So I hear you, and to be honest, that is the modern way. Get the idea down, get the song written and recorded the best possible way you can. and don't let the idea disappear. So sometimes it's moving super quickly. So I think what you're suggesting, the way you work, is very typical of many of us. And it is not really the future, it is the present for many, many people. One mic, mainly recording vocals. Maybe they'll put it down and record an acoustic guitar. Maybe not. But yes, that is a very typical approach that you're doing. So join the club. When working on a track, at what point in the mix do you submit the track to the artist producer for comments and questions? I find that I want the mix to be as good sounding as possible, obviously. But what that means can mean different things to different people. What I like to do is mix it exactly how I hear it and spend a long time getting it so it's slamming. When it needs to be loud, it's loud. When it's quiet, get those dynamics right, get the balances between the instrument, make everything exciting sounding so it feels like it's jumping in and out of the speakers, all of that stuff. But I make sure I leave room for creativity. I learned that from Michael Brown. Michael Brown mixed 3 albums in a row for me. Mixed Josiah Lemming, The Fray, and Mandy Perkins' album, 3 albums in a row. And the thing about that he always did is he mixed it so it sounded great, but he didn't quite maybe do that little extra delay effect or that weird panning idea. It just sounded really, really compelling and fantastic. He let the artist and the producer, or both, get involved and come up with a little kind of, hey, could you just pan that over there? Put a little extra reverb tail on this. And because he said that quite often he would spend a long time doing tiny little details, which they didn't like. They're like, oh, I never heard it with that kind of delay on it. Could you do a different delay? So he realized that he wanted to be creative. He wanted it to smash you over the head and be compelling and all the things that a mix should be exciting or intimate if it's supposed to be intimate. All of these things he wanted, but he would leave room for the artist and the producer, or both, to get stuck in there and give their input. So that's my answer. Get it so you're happy with it, but leave enough room for input. Because if you go too far, you might paint yourself into a corner. We've done so much detail work and they're like, undo this, undo that, undo this. And I have had that happen to me where I've gone in and I've done so many tiny little details. They're like, oh, that was really, really cool. Can you get rid of it? So leave a little bit. Make it great, but leave a bit for the artist and the producer. I hope you're enjoying Fact Friday. Please hit the subscription down below and hit the bell so you're notified. And don't forget to go to producelikeapro.com and sign up for that email list. And leave lots of comments and questions below. I love hearing what you think. You don't have to agree with me. You can have your own answers. You can bring other questions. Leave your questions down below. I love our community. It's truly wonderful. Everybody helps each other out. I have a question about doubles and triples, if recorded, when it comes to vocals. Is there a standard procedure for using doubles in genres? Dave Grohl is exclusively using doubles, right? Probably. I would have to go back and listen to Dave Grohl off the top of my head, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a ton of doubles. It's, you go back to like the 80s and you listen to Madonna. Before we had any kind of pitch correction on young singers when they were coming out, one of the ways to get around it was to double and triple and quadruple. And it's still a way if you want an effect. I like hearing some of my favorite singers in doubles. John Lennon, one of my favorite voices, very often doubled himself. Not everybody's Freddie Mercury with the most incredible range and incredible voice. Many of us, myself included, easily sound a lot better with doubles and triples and quadruples, trust me. And it's an effect that we like. I like it. It blurs some of the edges. It takes away maybe some of the intimacy, but it also makes the vocal quite compelling in some areas. And if you're not doubling it, quite often I'll use a very short tape saturated delay that doesn't have a lot of high end, just to dirty it up and give it some rough edges. So that's the great thing about doubles, is it can roughen it a little bit, just give it a rock and roll attitude. As far as like which genre is it best for, definitely rock and roll. I don't know if I would do it in an R&B track. I'd want to hear more personality in an R&B track, but it's definitely useful in pop music, especially in choruses. What I'll tend to do is go strip down single vocal in the verse, chorus comes in, then go for the double. So that's another interesting thing that you can do, is like double in the choruses. But genre-wise, definitely rock and roll benefits from it massively. Do you only mix by ear, or do you go by feel also? I mean, I only go by feel and I use my ears. Does that make sense? I'll say it one more time. I only mix by feel and I use my ears to do that. So basically I'll pull up a track and I'll be like, I want this kick and snare now, like hit me over the head. I want it to like feel like it's in a big room. I want it to feel more aggressive. I want it to feel like the drummer is laying into that snare. Then I use my ears. Does that make sense? I want the vocalist to be intimate and soft, and I don't want it to step on the piano. I want it to blend in there. So I go, oh, well, the piano's not very bright. Let's take off some of the high end of the vocal. Now it feels like the singer and the piano player are one person. It is he or she sitting at the piano, because I haven't got the vocals super bright. I don't have the piano so dull that they're like in different worlds. I split the difference and bring it together. So that is what it wants to feel like, and then using my ears to communicate that. I want it to be piano vocalist. Don't want the vocals so bright that it sits out here and piano's in the background. I've got to bring those two together so they feel like they're sitting in the same room and there's just a mic pointed at both of them. That is the way I always work. How does it feel? I want it to feel exciting. I want it to feel intimate. I want it to feel big. I want it to feel small. I want all of these things. Now I use my ears as tools to decide, what do I have to do to make it feel that way? Create in your mind the sonic landscape. When I'm producing, I pretty much have an idea of how I want the song to sound before I start producing. It's very rare, very, very rare these days. It's been many years since I plugged in a guitar and started making it up. I have a really clear idea of what I want to do, and I build towards it. Now, that doesn't mean I don't change my mind, because other ideas come in. Wow, that's better. Let's go off in this direction. Of course that happens. Of course, I'm always open to creativity. But when I do this, I have a feeling about what I want, and I use my ears to get that across. Your ears are your greatest tool. All else being equal, such as performance, would a song not only mixed in the box, but also recorded in the box using amp and cab simulators and virtual drums, etc., sound different from one that's been recorded using real amps, real drums, real mics, mixed on real physical equipment? Yes, but not always for the exact reasons you would think. What I mean is, if I was recording Eric sitting over there on guitar, and I got a 57 and I went and stuck it up on a Vox AC30 and gave him a Les Paul, like that lovely Les Paul over there. Gave it to him, plugged it in, and he played a rhythm part. I could split that DI and go into my DAW and scroll through and find a really great AC30 emulation. Could find that, and then what I could decide to do was, like, sometimes they have mic placements. They have IRs. I have IRs myself that are Marshall cabs. I have an IR that has an AC30 cab recorded with, you guessed it, a 57. And I bet I could get fairly close. If I'm referencing the amp and the amp sim, and I start messing around with the mic and with this and that, I could get those sounds fairly close. So if I wanted to do that with everything, if I wanted to record Blair in Sunset Sound, and then, this is something I've created, not available yet, but created a full Sunset Sound drum package, and then with all of those drum sounds, so recorded the way I recorded drums with the drums that I used to record, I could probably painstakingly reproduce that drum sound in that room, because it's all recorded through the same gear with the same part and programming. I could probably take the kick and the snares and all the drums and use them to trigger the sounds with the same velocities. You get my point. After a while, it is possible to mimic it exactly. Give me some time, we'll get close. The big question is, why? Why would I do that? And I think that that's the reality. They're different tools for different jobs. And I'm not looking to replace a human being. If I hire Blair Sinter or Victor Indrizzo or Vinnie Caoluta or any of the other hundreds of drummers that I hire, and I send them into Sunset Sound in a beautiful drum kit and put beautiful microphones on them, I want the sound of that room and I want their creativity, and I want to get that from them. That's it. I want them to play with the artist in the room and bring creativity to it. It's more than the drum plugin. It's more than the sound. It's the creativity. Now, does that mean that I could give Vinny a keyboard and have him program it? I doubt if that's ever been asked of him, because why would you ask one of, if not the greatest drummer in the world to do that? I don't think it's ever been asked of him, but I'm sure he could figure it out. But again, why? So it's a great question. I do think you can copy. I do think things can be the same, but I think it's a different process. And once again, it's horses for courses. I feel like if I wanted to do a real Zeppelin style drum part, only using a drum plugin, I could do it. I could do it. I would sit there, I'd program it, I'd work on the sound. You could do it. It's all about, once again, as we talked about earlier, the ears. Make a decision about how you want it to sound, then use your ears to get that. Reference the sound that you want, get it there. Reference the parts, get it there. We can do all of this, but often it's about why. What is the end result? What is great about drum plugins, what's great about amp sims, is you can get from A to B super quick and get very usable tones much quicker than you can running into a studio from scratch and miking up a whole drum kit. By the time I've mic'd up the drum kit and got tones, I could have programmed 4 drum parts, maybe 5, maybe 6, maybe 7. My point is, I get what you're saying, and it's a great question, but it's definitely back for the phrase, t-shirt available soon, horses for courses. It's really about why you want to do that. If you are trying to do that and you are trying to emulate classic 70s rock drum sounds, you can do it. It'll just take you some time, but you can do it. But if you want something that has good, snappy, modern drum sounds and will get you from A to B quickly, open up your drum plugin and program it. If you want a good, heavy rock tone that you can open up, plug in, and get immediately, then just open your amp sim. There's an advantage to stuff. The best situation would be both. Maybe not the live drums, not everybody has a room big enough for it, but amp sims and real amps. You know, a nice microphone and maybe in emulation. The point is like variations of stuff that you can pick and choose. You know, that's what I love. That's the best of both worlds to me. Then I can choose something quick and easy to use, plug in. I've got a metal guitar solo sound straight away. And we tried out the Howard Benson plugin this week. That red Marshall emulation that got into that, cranked the gain up on that, plugged the guitar in. I've got a great lead guitar sound. Don't have to go over and change my Marshall sound. That can stay on the crunch setting that I love. There's my lead guitar sound. We got it. We started using it within 30 seconds. That's the beauty of all the different technology, the older, quote unquote, older way of doing it and the newer way of doing it. It's being able to work with all of the mediums is absolutely amazing. But the other thing that's important about the older way of doing it, it's about the fact that you've got many people in a room working with each other, working off each other, creating something great. The beauty of the modern world is you can do it on your own. I can sit here and go, boom, 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 jack, boom, jack, then you know, plug in the guitar, play the guitar part, plug in the bass. I'm moved. I'm here with my little keyboard and my screen, and I just created a song. So, horses for courses. That's my quick and easy answer. Should have just said that. My band is recording some original songs in my stupidly small studio, so we have to use electronic drums. How do you improve the machine gun rolls, especially on toms? Interesting, I would have thought snares would be worse. That's kind of machine gun. But with toms as well, I totally understand. You have to randomize. It's back to that. What I would suggest then is you maybe get separate tom hits as well. You know, lay them over. When we are using snare samples on a fill or tom samples on a tom fill, we'll use different toms. So maybe one's like boom, the other one's like boom, like ever so slightly lower. So when it goes, it doesn't go da 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 da. It goes ka 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 ka. It has like a different feel, a different velocity, a different volume, and a slightly different pitch. When a left hand hits a drum, it's different than when a right hand hits it. Like when we were building our own sample library, we had 10 minutes of right hand, 10 minutes of left hand. So when you trigger a roll in our drums, it's going to be right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, or left, right, whatever. The point is it's going to be randomized. That's what's going to give it feel. So you're going to have to go in there and take those fills, maybe have them play the fills a couple of different times, get different velocity ones, and then randomize the volume, randomize how they sound. So maybe what you have to do is go in there and pitch them very slightly. The reality is the way that the samples work really well is when they decay against each other, not when they're on, off, on, off, on, off. That was the old problem with the snare drum on the Simmons drum kits, is when you did a fill, it went da 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 da, because it wasn't decaying over. It was just start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. It's just triggering the first part of the fill each time. That was why they sounded like machine guns. So see if you can take the toms like this and then lay a sample of itself against it that decays, so they decay into each other. And then maybe take each one and pitch it ever so slightly different. Like maybe down 0.2 or 0.3 of a cent, just so it goes boom, 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 rather than boom, 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 boom. Coming to a studio near you, Warren Sound Effects. Anyway, marvelous questions. Thank you ever so much. I've been Warren. I've been wearing a black shirt. Thank you for my comments on my white shirt. I do have a fancy new haircut. I don't know if it is showing on camera here. There was actually a question about my haircut today. I didn't get to it. C'est la vie. Anyway, as ever, please subscribe. Go to Produce Like a Pro. Hit the bell, please, and you'll be notified when we have a new video. And don't forget to go to Produce Like a Pro and download all of the free schnizzle we have there. Videos, drums, samples, multi-tracks, you name it. There's tons of free stuff on producelikeapro.com. So go there, sign up for that. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing.